Mark Zuckerberg. So Meta, which is owned by Mark Zuckerberg, has announced that the term Zionist is an anti-Semitic proxy for Jews. Okay, in the Orwellian books, I believe that they started getting rid of words or changing the meaning of words and stuff like this. You can't ban words. You can't do it. Words have power and words have meaning. And what you're doing is you're telling people what they can write and what they can't write by censoring particular words. You don't have a right to censor words. Words don't belong to you. You've got a platform and you wish to censor particular words on your platform. So you're basically limiting poetics or freedom of speech. What happens if you get a fantastic author or a fantastic poet and they wish to write about something and they wish to use the word Zionist? Then they're going to be censored because they're using language that you don't want. So if there was a fantastic poet that wanted to share their poetry on your platform, you're stopping people from accessing maybe one of the best poets in the world, their work, and tantalizing and igniting the imagination of very young people who are on your website. So if, for instance, Shakespeare used the word Zionist, then that work wouldn't be able to be propagated to particular people because you don't like the words that he uses. It's not for billionaires to decide the language that we use. And by controlling people to a very, very small level, controlling what you eat, controlling how you think, controlling the words you can use, these are all forms of control which slowly start to erode your freedoms. You can't use that word, you can't pronounce it like that, you can't go there, you can't say this. All right, so it's a form of control, which is not good. And what are you going to call a Zionist then if you're not allowed to call them a Zionist? Because obviously a group of people exist that are Zionists. So what do you call them if they're not? I mean, it's just strange. You don't. This is what billionaires. This is going to cause problems because billionaires are very powerful, and I think in the future, one of my predictions is that they'll try to limit the power of billionaires. I mean, if you've got someone like Jeff Bezos that bans books, so that you can't read those books, he's starting to ban literature. So you can burn the libraries of Alexandria, but then 2,000, 3,000 years later, you can ban the selling of books because there are no libraries left because everything's online. And then maybe if you've got a digital ID, you can be banned from accessing certain types of books. So the idea of burning Alexandria is a bit like crashing planes into the World Trade Center. They're huge things that have happened which are symbolic and go into the your consciousness. And what lays behind the burning of Alexandria is the destruction of information and the limitations of people receiving very important literature or mystical knowledge. So for instance, if there was a lot of texts from the Gnostics which were pre and post-Christian, and the pre-Christian Gnostics had information on who Jesus was, but the Christians, Catholic Church, didn't want that information to get out because they would lose control over people. Because if they can tell the people that they're the only ones that can sell Jesus and sell the Bible, then all of the money that people wish to give them has to go to them and to no one else. So it's about control over ideas and perceptions and control over thoughts. Okay, so it's another form of control, and billionaires don't have a right to do this, just as Bill Gates doesn't have a right to tell us how to live and what food to eat and what he should do with the climate, which will come to. So the World Economic Forum would be happy you not owning but sharing cars. The Netherlands is building a new neighborhood where every car must be shared. There will be one vehicle for every 3 homes and no space for privately owned cars. Or residents will be encouraged to cycle, use public transport to borrow. Okay, so on one hand, this is okay, because what's happening is that the old cities like London and Rome and Florence, they're becoming a bit like museums, and there's a lot of immigration going into them, and it's pushing the locals out. And these cities were once beautiful and now being turned into monstrous architectural expressions of modernism and postmodernism. A lot of beautiful buildings in the past were destroyed in order to make way for, skyscrapers and rubbish and shopping malls and stuff like this. And I think that on one hand, it is important. That we do have modern cities, but what's happening is that these modern cities will then become cities of control. Even Trump wants to have 10 modern cities, but really what we need is we need cities of freedom, which is what Trump has put forward, I believe, in Agenda 47 or something like that. So what you need is you need cities which are there to have modern amenities. Whether if you have a car or you don't have a car, you should be able to have a car, but there should be a service that is so good that you don't need to have a car. Like, for instance, schools. You should be able to send your children to private schools, but the state education should be so good that nobody does, which is sort of roughly what happens in Germany. And I think we're going to see a lot of people and countries and cities people start to build new cities. In Saudi Arabia, MBS, he started to build the line, hasn't he? And so there are these ideas to sort of bring in modern technology into our lives. However, these new cities should be integrated into technology, integrated into nature, because we come from nature and we need to have a link to nature, because if we disassociate ourselves from nature, then we become psychopaths, because it's nature, it's our relationship with nature, the sun, the water, the earth, all of those things that make us human, because humanity has all of those chemicals and those elements in our body. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to take out those elements, or we're trying to disassociate ourselves from those elements and put different elements into our body in the form of chips. So Neuralink is there putting things into our body when we need to be taking, illnesses and chemicals out of our body, and we need to be replacing them by things in nature that have life. So, for instance, vegetables and fruit, they contain life in them, and we consume that life. And a lot of the food that we eat is dead. So in what direction are these cities going to go? They're selling it as, cycles, public transports, communist idea of sharing everything. Okay, fine. That would come out as some sort of Uber thing, and it might be really good and fantastic. But on the other end, it might have more digital control over people. So there are more cameras. It's more difficult to be free. You have these 15-minute cities. You have these 15-minute locations in cities where you can't get out. So you have to be quite careful about what's going on there.